You're listening to The Observing Eye. Pirate radio for the mind. Coming at you fresh from the computer hell cabin.
Hello, you beautiful lot. It's Friday, the 12th of April, 2024, and you're listening to episode 60 of The Observing Eye, coming at you live from the computer hell cabin. Every week, we get psychological, philosophical, and all manner of introspective. I'm David, and this week, we're going way back in time, way back to ancient Egypt and the man who may have started it all. The great Hermes Trismegistus. They call him the thrice great Hermes, a mysterious sage at the crossroads of myth and history. This enigmatic figure is linked to a vast collection of ancient texts, exploring the workings of the universe, the potential for the human mind, and the possibility of a connection to something greater than ourselves. The philosophy arising from these writings, called Hermeticism, isn't just a relic of the past. It speaks of a universe born from thought, of hidden correspondences between the stars above and our inner worlds, of a quest for knowledge that begins with understanding our own true nature. These ideas captivated thinkers throughout history, from Renaissance scholars to modern seekers, and they had an unexpected resonance on me as well. I think there's something potent in the Hermetic way of seeing the world. It urges us to look beyond the surface, to find connections where we least expect them, and to embrace the potential we carry within us to shape our own destinies. So today, let's explore the enigma of Hermes Trismegistus. We'll delve into the origins of Hermetic philosophy and the core ideas that have echoed throughout time. But most importantly, we'll ask ourselves how this ancient wisdom might offer a fresh perspective for navigating our own lives in the 21st century. Okay then, let's dive into the big question. The one that's probably been swirling around your head since you read the title of this podcast episode. Who or what exactly was Hermes Trismegistus? Well, the answer, unfortunately, is not a simple one. Imagine you're back in the early centuries AD, a period where the remnants of ancient Egyptian civilization mingled with the philosophies of Greece and the rising influence of Rome. It was a crossroads of cultures, a melting pot of ideas about the world and our place within it. And it's against this backdrop that the figure of Hermes Trismegistus emerges. Now here's where things get interesting. Hermes is the Greek counterpart of the Egyptian god Thoth, the ibis-headed god of writing, magic, and knowledge. Trismegistus means thrice great. So we've got this figure who's like a supercharged version of the wisdom god, bumbling around the ancient world, professing knowledge of how the universe works and our place within it. But unfortunately, there is no single historical record pointing to a definitive individual called Hermes Trismegistus. The name becomes like a cloak, worn by philosophers and alchemists and seekers of hidden truths across generations. This blending begins with the gods themselves. Hermes is the Greek messenger god, the nimble-minded patron of communication and interpretation. He finds his counterpart in Thoth, the ibis-headed Egyptian god revered for his knowledge of magic, writing, and the secrets of the universe. This combination, the messenger of the gods imbued with the most profound wisdom, hints at the reverence surrounding the very idea of Hermes Trismegistus. As time passes, a collection of texts known as the Hermetica arises, attributed to this legendary figure. These writings are a treasure trove of philosophy, mysticism, and pronouncements on the workings of the cosmos and the potential of the human soul. Think of it as an ancient collection of philosophical bombshells about the nature of reality and our place within it. And this is where the mystery gets even deeper. Was Hermes Trismegistus a real person from a bygone era, a sage so ancient their origins are shrouded in legend? Perhaps the name represents an entire lineage of teachers, each passing down fragments of esoteric knowledge. Or could it be a purely symbolic figurehead, embodying the ultimate synthesis of Greek and Egyptian thought, of reason and the mystical? The lack of a definitive answer doesn't diminish the power of the myth. Hermes Trismegistus becomes a beacon, a testament to the enduring human desire to bridge the earthly and the divine, to seek a unified understanding that transcends both cultures and individual lifetimes. I'm afraid that is all I can give you on the background of Hermes Trismegistus, because it is a fog. It is a deep, dark fog within which we know very little about his origins, except for, the potential that he might have been Hermes and Thoth, basically. But I think we can put the mysticism aside. It's clearly a person or a group of people or a lineage of philosophers who are, wandering around the ancient world teaching wisdom and things like that. So that's my interpretation. It's either one person or it's a collective that just call themselves Hermes Trismegistus. I don't think it was Hermes, like the Greek god with the little wings on his ankles. I'm not saying it was him at all, by any stretch. Next thing you know, I'll be talking about manifesting a quiche. You all know where we're going to go with that. Okay, so let's get into the core principles of Hermeticism, what it is and what it means. So the philosophy at its heart, the philosophy called Hermeticism at its heart, has a set of principles known as the 7 Hermetic principles. Think of these as keys to decode the way that the universe works, and more importantly, how to unlock our own potential. I'm going to run through these as a list and explain each one as I go. And hopefully I'll give you a little bit of an insight into what they represent. So principle 1 is called mentalism. And it states, the all is mind, the universe is mental. So this foundational principle is quite bold, if I'm honest. It claims that the universe, at its most fundamental level, is not simply matter and energy, but thought. What we perceive as reality is the grand projection of a cosmic mind. Now, this doesn't mean the world is an illusion. Far from it. It implies that our thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions profoundly shape our experience. Principle 2, correspondence. And you will have heard this one, or you will probably have heard half of this one. Most people misquote this particular rule of Hermeticism. And that is, as above, so below, as below, so above. Now, this is all about connections. Imagine a universe as a vast interconnected web. Hermeticism suggests microcosms mirror macrocosms. The patterns in the heavens are reflected in the patterns of our lives, and even within our own bodies. This isn't just about astrology, it's an invitation to find significance in the echoes and resemblances that surround us. Now, there's an interesting parallel to this idea around the microcosm mirroring the macrocosm, and you can find that within fractal images. So the ones that you can zoom into and they just keep becoming the same image. But you see fractals in nature a lot as well. You'll see fractals in flowers, in leaf formations and that sort of stuff. So fractals are an interesting parallel to this idea of correspondence, and the micro within the macro, and vice versa. But I'm not going to go down that path because that's a little off of philosophy and a little bit too into esotericism, and I don't feel that is necessarily what I'm advertising when I talk about this podcast. Maybe I'll do a different one on esoteric ideas later on if people are interested in this sort of thing. So principle 3, vibrations. Vibrations. Nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. Well, that's kind of true, isn't it? We know that all matter vibrates. Everything moves, unless you get it really cold, like, minus 200 and something Kelvin, 280 Kelvin. Someone correct me on that. I can't remember the number. Minus 280 No, it's not. 0 Kelvin. God damn it. This is what my physics has failed me. 0 Kelvin minus 200 and something degrees Celsius, whatever it is. 276, I don't know. You tell me. So, nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. So, we can forget the idea, according to Hermeticism, of solid static objects. Hermeticism sees everything as existing on a spectrum of vibration, from the slowest moving physical matter to the highest, subtlest energies. Our very thoughts and emotions are said to have their own vibrational frequencies, shaping the reality we attract to ourselves. Okay, we're getting a little esoteric, but this is a very old combination of Egyptian and Greek ideas. So, as I mentioned earlier, we are mixing, in Hermeticism, we are mixing the rational with the mystical. And we get to this kind of very interesting space with the 7 rules of Hermeticism. Principle 4, polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. So this one's straightforward. This one, we could talk about duality in Buddhism as well, and Taoism, the yin-yang, the complementary opposites, so think hot and cold, dark, light, love, fear. These principles remind us that the world exists in polarities, and that understanding one requires understanding its opposite. So you can't understand heat without having an understanding of what cold is, obviously, or up or down, or strange or charm, or top or bottom, all that kind of stuff. So Hermeticists seek to work with the push and pull of these polar forces for balance and growth, essentially. Principle 5, rhythm. Rhythm. Everything flows. So you can tell I'm in a good mood today. Rhythm. Okay, sorry. Principle 5, rhythm. Sorry. Principle 5, rhythm. Everything flows, out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. So this is the idea of the cosmic dance. Hermeticism recognizes that change is constant, much like Buddhism. The only thing that is certain is change. Cycles of creation and destruction, of growth and decline. Understanding these rhythms helps us to move with the tide rather than resist it. Enter the stream, my friends. This is it. There's lots of similarities in Hermeticism, from Hermeticism, that I see in other philosophies and religions. It's quite interesting. So I thought I'd bring out old Hermes this week, because it's quite a foundational idea of a lot of the stuff that we talk about in the episodes. A lot of them will have some foundation in Hermeticism. It's an interesting blend of the philosophies and ideas. So, principle 6, cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Chance, according to Hermeticism, is just a name for a law we don't yet understand. There's a profound order behind the seeming chaos of the universe, and our actions, both mentally and physically, reverberate outward, shaping our destinies. Well, it smells a little bit like karma, doesn't it? I like this. This is good. This has been a while since I've read Hermeticism. Doing some research on Hermes has been a good refresher. There's a really good book. I'll put this in the show notes. There's a really good book called The Kybalion, which I recommend. If there's one book you're going to read about Hermeticism, you should read The Kybalion. I think it's about 150 years old. Obviously, there are reprint versions on Amazon and stuff. You can find it. But it's a very, very interesting book that covers the Hermetic ideas in quite a bit of depth, but with enough brevity for it to make sense, for us to kind of get our heads around it. It's a very cool book, but I'll put a link to that in the show notes, and you can find that and purchase it if you're so inclined. Okay, last one. Principle 7, gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. So when we talk about gender in Hermeticism, we aren't necessarily talking about biological sex. We are referring to creative and receptive energies. So the active and the passive, which exist in all aspects of creation. Hermetic philosophy sees balance between these forces as an essential component of the universe operating as it should. So individually, each of those principles is probably going to trigger a little bit of recognition, a little spark of recognition in you from just other things that you will have seen that will have drawn influence from Hermeticism. So things like the universe is a mental construct, which sounds a bit like these modern manifestation practices. Manifest me a quiche. I would like one immediately. And, then the postman arrives and delivers me a quiche. That's kind of how that works, isn't it? And then we have things like seeking correspondences. So many scientists find parallels between the laws governing the cosmos and biological patterns. The power of Hermeticism lies in the combination of these ideas, these 7 ideas. It's a holistic worldview. It's one that encourages us to think not like isolated individuals, but as interconnected parts of a dynamic, evolving reality. And I think that's really important. Let's fuck the cult of the individual. Let's remember that we are interconnected parts of a greater whole, be that our community, be it society, be it nature, be it the universe at large. This is where I think there is power in the ideas of Hermeticism, and which is why I'm talking about it today. One moment, I have to let the cat out of the room. I'll be back shortly. Okay, I have released a cat, and I'm going to move on to the next section, which is the influence that Hermeticism has had on... Oh, hang on, Siri's answered me. Siri? No. Okay, should we try it again? The influence that Hermeticism has had on Western thought. Hermeticism is... We can consider Hermeticism as a thread that's kind of woven through the centuries of Western thought and has shaped the way that intellectuals, artists, and people who are hungry for spiritual meaning see the world. I'm just going to give a few key moments where we might really recognize how its influence comes through, so we can see examples of how it has influenced Western thought. So let's begin by imagining Florence in the throes of the Renaissance. It's the 15th century. People are just whimsically loafing around with abandon, painting and thinking and all that kind of jazz, which we don't do enough of these days. It's a time of intellectual awakening, a rediscovery of classical knowledge that had been obscured for centuries. As scholars pore over ancient Greek and Roman texts, the mysterious name of Hermes Trismegistus surfaces, interwoven with a profound philosophical system. Suddenly, these intellectuals and academics are confronted with a mindset that promises harmony between the dictates of faith and the burgeoning spirit of rational inquiry. For luminaries like Marsilio Ficino and Pico della Mirandola, Jesus Christ, Hermetic philosophy provided a key to reconciling age-old wisdom with the new perspectives of the Renaissance. I could not get that. It took me 5 goes. You didn't hear the other ones to get that right. Pico della Mirandola. There we are. Should have tried practice that a bit more before I did the script. But the scope of Hermetic thought doesn't stop there. Enter the smoky labs of the alchemists. These peculiar figures sought far more than the mere transformation of base metals into gold. Their true quest was the purification of both matter and soul. The Hermetic texts, with their emphasis on correspondences and hidden patterns, became their guiding light. The principle of as above, so below inspired alchemists to believe that unlocking the secrets of the material world would simultaneously reveal the path towards spiritual enlightenment. Centuries later, Hermeticism's themes continue to resonate. Mystical and esoteric movements like Rosicrucianism and Kabbalah embraced Hermetic concepts, finding in them an affirmation of the divine spark within all beings and a roadmap to understanding the intricate interconnectedness underlying creation. Even Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, delved into Hermetic symbolism, recognizing parallels between ancient Hermetic thought and his exploration of the archetypal patterns residing within the collective unconscious. So why has this philosophy, attributed to a figure shrouded in myth, proven so compelling across such a vast expanse of time? Well, perhaps it lies in the inherent optimism of Hermeticism. At its core, it presents a vision of the human being as not merely a passive observer, but as a co-creator of reality, imbued with a fragment of the divine mind. Furthermore, Hermeticism attempted a grand synthesis, a bridging of the scientific and the spiritual, of the diverse philosophies sprung from Egypt, Greece, and the rising tide of Christianity. It presented a holistic vision that held immense appeal in times of rapid intellectual and spiritual change. However, it's crucial to note that Hermeticism's influence was not static. Each era it encountered left its mark. Renaissance humanists, in their eagerness to reconcile the wisdom of antiquity with their own worldview, sometimes reinterpreted the Hermetica, projecting their own values and aspirations onto its teachings. Similarly, critics warn of potential dangers within Hermeticism, suggesting that its focus on the power of the human will lead to an overinflation of the ego, or worse, to a belief system disconnected from material reality. Even today, we see the legacy of Hermes Trismegistus. Echoes of Hermetic principles can be found in the modern New Age movements' focus on the mind's power to shape reality, in self-help literature that emphasizes self-knowledge, and anywhere individuals search for hidden meanings and a deeper sense of connection with the cosmos. So let's look at some debates and controversies around Hermeticism now and see where it may fall down. Because, it's important that we have a balanced view of these things. I'm not just going to go, I can manifest whatever I dream, and not think about the massive contradictions and pitfalls that come with that ideology. As with all philosophies, controversy is inevitable. A persistent question plagues both scholars and enthusiasts alike when it comes to Hermeticism, and that's when did these writings first emerge? Hermes Trismegistus is very often associated with the ancient sands of Egypt, a figure steeped in the myths of an almost impossibly distant civilization. Yet the consensus among experts suggests the core Hermetic texts most likely came into being during the first few centuries AD, a period infused with a ferment of Greek, Roman, and early Christian influences. This challenges the very popular perception, particularly strong during the Renaissance, that Hermeticism held primeval wisdom predating many other influential philosophies. In fact, when I was doing some research on Hermeticism a while ago, I thought that Hermes Trismegistus was Sumerian, which predates Egypt. It turns out it was that sort of Egypt's Greek-Roman border. So you'll get some conflicting information about the time in which Hermes was kicking about. And then you'll get some people who say that he was thousands of years old and was like one of those Anunnaki Sumerian gods, which I'm not buying myself. I don't subscribe to that idea. It was, as I say, my opinion is that it was one person or a group of people over a period of time rather than Thoth or some Anunnaki ancient alien astronaut, whatever the fuck. Yeah, anyway, that's my critique and controversy. But as we explore this idea, I'm going off script, back to script. As we explore this idea, the debate deepens. Did the Hermetica truly reflect and preserve the ancient beliefs of the Egyptian people, or do they offer something else? A hybrid of Egyptian mythology and symbolism filtered through the philosophical lens of the Greeks and Romans. This question brings us face to face with the complex cultural exchange of the ancient world, forcing us to investigate how ideas travel, evolve, and adapt within diverse societies. Another crucial layer of discussion centers around potential misunderstandings and appropriations of Hermeticism throughout history. Did those cheeky Renaissance luminaries, eager to bridge the gap between a renewed interest in classical thought and the dominance of Christianity, selectively reinterpret Hermetic philosophy to align with their own evolving spiritual perspectives? Because that wouldn't be the first time that's happened in history, would it, children? Similarly, have modern movements, ranging from New Age spirituality to self-help gurus, and we all know how much I love a self-help guru, strayed too far from the original intent of these ancient teachings by emphasizing some ideas while obscuring others. Oh, people just picking the bits that they like and agree with. Heaven forbid. These concerns, God, how cynical of me today. These concerns, raised by critics and myself, highlight the importance of understanding any philosophy within the historical context and guarding against projecting contemporary desires onto texts from vastly different eras. That's an important thing to remember. Don't project your shit onto something else because you want it to be what you want it to be. I'll apply that to all things. And that's interesting. You know, something else that I didn't put in the script, but I'm going to mention now, is don't forget what happens when you translate from old languages into modern English or what have you, because you will lose some of the nuances and the meaning in that translation. I bought a copy. This is going off track, but I'm going to say it anyway. I bought a copy of the Tao Te Ching, which is Lao Tzu's poem about Taoism. Lao Tzu is the guy that founded Taoism. So you had Lao Tzu and Confucius were kind of contemporaries. Confucius was all about society and politics and filial piety and stuff like that. Whereas Lao Tzu just sat in a cave and worked out how nature works, apparently. And he wrote this poem called the Tao Te Ching, which supposedly explains the workings of the entire cosmos and our place within it in 1,500 words. So I've read this, but I've read it in English because my Chinese is not good. And you do lose something. Like, it's an interesting poem, the ideas are there, but you lose something in the language. So I think you'll get the idea, but the nuance can be lost. So bear that in mind as well when we're looking at some of these old texts. That is important to remember. Rant over. Right, so finally, some question the inherent philosophy within the Hermetic traditions. While the emphasis on the power of the human mind grants Hermeticism and optimism appealing to many, critics raise valid concerns. Where is the line between a healthy acknowledgement of our agency and a potential inflation of ego, leading to a belief in the mind's dominion over external material constraints? I'm going to go back to manifesting a quiche. I cannot sit here at my desk and will a quiche into existence. If I sit here and think really hard about quiche, no one's going to ring my doorbell and say, I hear you would like this pastry delight. It's not going to happen. I don't buy into this. And I've said this I don't know what episode it was, but I've said it before. I really don't like this idea of manifesting shit into existence. Yeah. Manifest your behavior and your agency and your effort, but don't just imagine that you're going to be wealthy and do nothing about it other than lay in bed listening to an audio tape of someone giving you affirmation statements. It doesn't work. Okay. And I may greet people by saying that, but I don't care because it's my opinion and that's what I think. Sorry, not sorry. So can concepts like mentalism, I'm going back to script now. Can concepts like mentalism, the assertion that the universe arises from a cosmic mind, promote magical thinking, magical quiche, rather than a balanced understanding of subjective and objective reality? I'm saying these things because I want you to question. I want you to think about it and not take any of this stuff at face value. The whole point of philosophy is that it is a tool to help us to think and to make us think and question. That is the idea of this stuff. I'm not putting this out there as a guidebook or a playbook to existence. These are examples of things, and you take what you take from it. And that's the wonderful thing about philosophy is we take the bits that work for us and the bits we can resonate with and the things that we're going to find useful because it's a tool. It's a tool that we can use to help us think better. Okay, I'm really going off track here, but I don't know. There are important things to say today. Feels like there's important things to say. That's it. That's where I am. So we might wonder whether these critiques undermine Hermetic philosophy. However, engaging with them is a testament to its continued vitality. Debating the origins of the Hermetica forces us to question how ideas move through time and how they transform depending upon who holds them. Exploring potential misunderstandings opens a path for a deeper, more authentic connection to these ancient principles. In a way, this active questioning, this relentless pursuit of greater understanding, is inherently Hermetic. The texts themselves emphasize the importance of looking beyond surface appearances and challenging our own preconceived notions of reality. And that is why I love philosophy, ladies and gentlemen. That is why I love it. So let's look. As always, I try to give you some ways of taking the philosophical ideas that I discuss in each episode and applying them to your lives today. Now, Hermeticism is going to be a little bit of a tricky one. Not as bad as existentialism and Albert Camus, but I am going to talk through a few points on how some of the philosophy of Hermeticism can relate to yourselves, to ourselves, to today. So starting with mentalism. Mentalism and the digital age. I think there is an interesting correlation here. The universe is mental. So while that statement would have had a very different meaning for an ancient Hermeticist, it echoes modern concepts like manifestation and the power of positive thinking. Of course, Hermeticism doesn't promise that we'll get everything we wish for just by visualizing it. Quiche! Instead, it might encourage us to examine how our mindsets, our deep-seated beliefs, shape our perception of the world and in turn influence our actions and experiences. In an era where we are bombarded with information and distraction, this principle invites greater mindfulness and intentionality. Exercise your agency, that's all I'll say. Question and exercise agency. So correspondence, unlocking hidden connections. As above, so below. This principle begs us to look for patterns and parallels. Scientists seek correspondences between the behavior of subatomic particles and the dynamics of the vast cosmos. A modern Hermetic perspective might encourage us to see our inner worlds reflected in our external environment, or to observe the ways personal growth mirrors societal shifts. It's an invitation to embrace a sense of interconnectedness in a world that sometimes feels fragmented and chaotic. That is it, isn't it? We are part of a larger, more complex whole than the individual ego that exists within ourselves. It's a very important message to remember. And then we have personal transformation. Hermeticism champions the idea that change is possible, whether within ourselves or in the world at large. The emphasis on rhythm and polarity reminds us that everything is in flux, and that understanding the cyclical nature of existence, the ups and downs, can equip us with resilience. The principle of cause and effect suggests that our actions, big or small, have reverberations beyond what we can immediately see, urging us to take responsibility for our impact on others and our environment. So I think that's a pretty good message. Be responsible for yourselves. Consider how your actions impact others and the world at large. And lastly, we have the integration of opposites. The principle of polarity encourages finding balance amid seeming contradictions, embracing both our ambition and our need for rest, our logical side and our intuitive impulses. This dynamic approach, reflecting Hermetic wisdom, can lead to a more integrated, healthy sense of self. Balance the opposites. Now, with all this being said, let me offer a word of caution. It is vital to remember that Hermeticism is not a magic bullet offering instant solutions to life's complexities. What it can do is serve as a lens, offering a fresh perspective and encouraging us to see ourselves as both active participants in and observers of the grand dance of existence. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all I have to say on the curious subject of Hermes Trismegistus. From the identity of this enigmatic figure to the core principles of Hermeticism, we've delved into a philosophy that has both captivated and challenged minds for centuries. Whether you see Hermes Trismegistus as a historical person, a symbol, or a collection of evolving ideas, the power of Hermetic thought lies in its invitation. It urges us to step outside our usual mental frameworks, to question assumptions, and to see ourselves as active participants in a constantly unfolding cosmic tapestry. We've discussed the potential pitfalls of Hermeticism, misinterpretations and inflation of ego, but these cautions don't negate the inherent value in a philosophy that prizes self-knowledge, seeks interconnectedness, and views the human mind as a potential co-creator of reality. And so, while our time together ends, your exploration of Hermeticism can continue. Whether you're drawn to the original texts, to the work of modern scholars exploring this field, or simply to a more contemplative approach to your daily life, Let the principles that we've discussed linger in your mind. Look for correspondences, question your perspectives, and embrace the ever-changing rhythms of both your inner world and the cosmos that surrounds you. I want to thank my 5 subscribers for joining me on this wonderful exploration today. I hope that it sparked some interesting questions in you, that it has given you some food for thought, and that you can take away something that's going to help you to think about your perceptions and your place within the grander construct of the cosmos. As always, if anything in this episode has resonated with you in any way, then I would love to hear from you. You can share your stories via Substack at theobservingeye.com or on social media. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/@theobservingeye and on TikTok and Instagram with the handle @theobservingeye as well. Take care, everybody. Much love, and I'll catch you soon.
You've been listening to The Observing Eye. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I hope it's been useful. And if you're interested in any more of my writing or work around psychology, philosophy, and general day-to-day living, please go and take a look at my Substack, which is theobservingeye.com. And that's I as in the letter, not I as in the gelatinous organ through which you see. Take care, everybody. Much love, and I'll catch you soon.